The great President Trump, he just gets madder and madder, doesn't he? Now he wants to buy Greenland. Well, you know, Greenland, it's a very strategic place for them. During the height of the Cold War, the Americans had one of their biggest air bases on Greenland up in the north, and it's still used now for commercial flights to come into the north of Greenland. It's got a lot of mineral reserves. In fact, Greenland is planning to open up the reserves of oil and gas, which are under the sea between Greenland and Canada. They're planning to open them up. So there is potential there. There's great tourist potential, of course. But and it could be that you know, Trump, with his madness, reckons that all this stuff will be even more accessible once Greenland melts, which, of course, his climate change policies is going to have happen even sooner. Clearly it's mad because it's not long ago since Greenland actually got a fair degree of autonomy from Denmark. So Greenland is a self-governing part of the Arctic, rather in the same way that Nunavut, which is a part of Canada, just across to the west of Greenland, that is a self-governing part of Canada, part of the Arctic. So all the Arctic nations, they're canny people, and I think Trump would be the last person that they would want to come in and exert very much control over them. I went to the East Coast to try to film walrus. We went to this interesting place because it was one of these places where the Danish patrols used to go out. The Danish used to run dog sled patrols up the east coast of Greenland, kind of as a military exercise, but kind of just to show the world that they were still owned Greenland. So we went to this place where they were based, and we wanted to film walrus diving underwater, feeding on the mussels beds. But it was typical. We went in the middle of summer, but it was an unusual summer, and we ended up with too much ice cover for the walrus to come in. If there's too much ice cover, then the walrus won't swim underneath the ice and down onto the bottom because they need to come to the surface. So they ended up just feeding somewhere else. We went to a glacier called the Store Glacier, which is one of the fastest moving glaciers in the world. And we worked with scientists while they measured the rate of flow of the ice of the glacier down and the calving rate of icebergs into the sea. And we had this fantastic camping site where we could camp on the shore and look right across the snout of the glacier. And you could almost see the glacier developing these big sticky out points. And we'd keep watching them, and then occasionally these would just, you know, tumble into the sea with the most enormous big icebergs. So we did that, and then I also filmed bowhead whales when we were doing Ocean Giants. I filmed from a small community up towards northern Greenland, and we did a sequence with hunting narwhal and the Inuit hunting the little ox on the cliffs. We did that at almost the furthest north native community in the world, a place called Kanak, which is right up towards the northwest of Greenland. It's a remarkable place, beautiful scenery. Apparently, President Truman tried to buy it in 1946 for $100 million. Well, I would say, allowing for inflation, I mean, what did a car cost in 1946? My maths is rubbish. $10 billion.
10 billion sounds pretty cheap to me for a country.
Well, you know, they bought Alaska. They had what's called the Louisiana Purchase, which was where they bought everything west of the Mississippi, and that took them all the way to the Pacific. And then they bought the Alaska off the Russians in the 1850s or so. So in a way, you know, America is already a largely bought superpower. So maybe it's not so bad that it'll buy a bit of Greenland.